Over the weekend, Colombian President Gustavo Petro got into a bit of a short standoff with President Donald Trump over migrant flights. Now, on Sunday, the country of Colombia had initially refused to accept two military aircraft with deportees on board. Now, Petro, of course, had accused Trump of not treating the deported migrants with any dignity or respect. Well, I mean, are we surprised? Donald Trump doesn't treat anybody with dignity or respect. And Petro had reposted a video on X showing deportees in an airport in Brazil with their hands and feet restrained as if they're, dangerous criminals. Now, Petro writes, "I cannot allow migrants to remain in a country that does not want them, but if that country sends them back, it must be with dignity and respect for them and for our country." Trump was not happy about that. He responded by threatening to tax Americans more for coffee. I'm not kidding. In a statement posted to his platform,
truth, essential,
threatened to impose an immediate 25% tariff on Colombia, which would rise to about 50% within a week. So obviously we get a lot of coffee from Colombia, also cut flowers. Hey, Valentine's Day coming real soon, okay? Without a lot of them cut flowers, well, there's going to be a lot of unhappy Magga ladies around, and you would have Donald Trump to thank. However, of course, that didn't happen. I'll get to that later in the story. But first, here's what he said. "I was just informed that two repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who was already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized national security and public safety of the United States." Wait, immigrants are not driving a crime wave that actually do less crime than native-born American citizens. So how's this a national security or public security issue? It's not. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the imports. If Trump does, or if he had done the tariffs, that would have harmed imports. The U.S. is Colombia's largest trading partner. He also threatened sanctions on Bogota, as well as a travel ban and other, quote, decisive retaliatory measures. "These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they forced into the United States." I mean, it's just full of BS in that statement. But anyway, that was enough to get the country to relent. Petro actually offered to send his own personal presidential plane to go and pick up the deportees less than an hour after Trump had announced these sanctions. And so it looks like there is not going to be a trade war with Colombia. In fact, the government of Colombia, according to a statement here, has, under the direction of President Gustavo Petro, has arranged a presidential plane to facilitate the dignified return of the compatriots who are going to arrive in the country today in the morning, coming from deportation flights. This measure responds to the government's commitment to guarantee decent conditions. Okay, so obviously in that flight, that's not going to be people wearing chains, chains, okay? And so, look, I know there's a lot of discussion of, oh, Trump backed down. I don't see that. I'm sorry. I see Donald Trump as winning this round. It sucks, okay? But yeah, no doubt about it, he got what he wanted, which is the people out of the country, okay? And he did it through bullying. Look, they call it a deal. Oh, no, they made a great deal. It's a tremendous deal. But no, calling it a deal is basically a way to save face, all right? This was absolutely a Trump win, all right? But it does make you wonder, though, what would happen with a country that actually could stand up to the United States. Now, of course, the big issue here is we're probably not going to ever see that, is because people are not running from the countries that could actually stand up to the United States, okay? There are countries that are either large trading partners or ones that need us in some way, okay? And that allows the United States to be able to push them around. And that's what happened here. Okay, that's how Trump got his win. We're kind of a juggernaut, okay, of these countries. And look, Petro was always going to accept the deportation flights, but the issue that he had is absolutely a valid issue. All right, Donald Trump and the Trump administration are treating all migrants as dangerous criminals and putting them literally in chains, sending them on military flights. That is super messed up, okay? Especially for people whose only crime, real crime here, is crossing an imaginary line on a map, all right? That's it. They're not, hurting people, okay? A lot of them are like benefiting the communities of which they were living in. But it doesn't matter. Again, Trump's not going after people with criminal histories, okay? He's going after any migrant who happens to be undocumented and then claim that they're dangerous criminals. None of it's true. Most likely they're nabbing the low-hanging fruit, right? The people that are easy to get, the guy working your construction site, the guy working the restaurant. Yeah, there's some like alleged gang members that have been nabbed as well, right? But then you're also getting a bunch of people who really didn't do anything other than cross into the country illegally, right? And the thing is that they're doing this without due process. And that's the real big issue, right? I mean, sure, yeah, everybody's fine right now with Trump ignoring due process for migrants. Oh, well, they're here illegally, so he has a right to do it. Okay, but what about the due process for the American citizens that are getting caught up in this net as well? I mean, their due process, their constitutional rights have already been violated. For example, the New Jersey raid, there was an American veteran that was arrested and detained without due process. That's a problem. It's already happening, all right? ICE is already violating the Constitution with Donald Trump's backing, and that should concern everyone. And here's the thing, right? It's not like Joe Biden didn't do a whole bunch of deportations himself, all right? Obama was a deporter in chief, right? And so, yeah, they did a bunch of that. The thing is that at least they did some sort of due process, followed the laws, all right? Donald Trump is not following due process. In fact, recently we just learned that Trump set up a quota of arrests that he wants ICE to meet. So he wants a total of 1,200 to 1,500 migrants arrested and detained and deported a day. You know what that means? More widespread raids and more American citizens that are going to get swept up in these raids for looking the wrong way. This is widespread, okay, racial profiling that's going to happen now. But what do you expect from a convicted felon who doesn't give a damn about the law, obviously, doesn't give a damn about the Constitution? All Trump cares about is getting what he wants when he wants it. And so far, like him or not, he's been extremely effective at getting what he wants. President Donald Trump has called for the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. No joke. In a call with King Abdullah II of Jordan, he said that he wanted the countries of Jordan and Egypt to take in all of the Palestinian refugees. So, look, I'm going to play some audio here from a 20-minute question and answer session with the reporters aboard Air Force One, where he talks about that.
You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. It's it's over the centuries that's had many conflicts inside, and I don't know. It's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing in a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change. Temporary, or would they? It could be either. It could be temporary. It could be long term.
Oh yeah, no, I'd rather get involved with the other Arab nations and have them build housing there for the Palestinians to live in. Well, okay, but that is literally ethnic cleansing. I mean, what? Okay, so when he says, "Oh, it could be temporary, it could be long term," well, if it's temporary, then okay, they get to stay somewhere as refugees, which is ironic because Trump has been deporting refugees. Okay, people who are here, even people who are here legally under the Biden administration, have had that legality revoked, and now he is sending them back. And so it's like, oh yeah, no, refugees. The Palestinians can be refugees. And Gaza or in Egypt and Jordan from Gaza, but we're not going to take any refugees here. In fact, we're going to kick them all out. Ah, okay. Now, but he says though, and this is key, right? They get to stay as refugees somewhere else. And it could be short term. All right, which would be okay. All right, short term resettlement, whatever. Or it could be long-term, which is ethnic cleansing. That's what you have. And this is what we on the left have been saying the entire time, okay, what Trump's plan is. And what we've been talking about it would be the Israeli military's goal, which is, again, to ethnically cleanse Gaza, to get all the Palestinians out so they can annex it and develop it, build more settlements in it, and then take ownership of it. And yet, when we call that out, oh, you're anti-Semitic, you're pro-terrorist, you're pro-Hamas. No, I don't like Hamas either, right? But I can understand why they're so popular over there. Look, if you're on the side of doing ethnic cleansing, you might want to check to see if you're actually one of the good guys. Because if you were a good guy, you would be worried about both Palestinian lives as well as Israeli lives. Okay, and you would care about both of them, and you would want to actually get to a peaceful solution where both sides get something. Palestinians get some sort of self-determination and don't live in an open-air prison, and Israelis are able to get some sort of peaceful agreement to where they can coexist. Wouldn't that be nice? But we're not in that direction. Okay, we're not going that way. In fact, right now you have the Israeli government, despite having a ceasefire in place, they are not letting Palestinian refugees back into their homes. They've already accused Hamas of violating the agreement. Already. Now, look, the Israeli far right loves Trump's statements. In fact, you have Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich describing the relocation of Palestinians as a quote-unquote great idea. Oh, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, well, we love ethnic cleansing. Let's just get rid of all of them. He said he would work with Netanyahu and the cabinet to create a, quote, operational plan for implementation as soon as possible. This would be by force. They're talking about the forced relocation of millions of people, okay, to countries that don't want to take them. And they've been very open about not taking them. But don't worry, it's also that Trump, Jared Kushner, and some of these Israeli politicians can get some land development deals and do some annexation. It is absolutely grotesque, okay? But no, here's more, by the way. Speaking of grotesque, there's even more audio, and this is about the 2,000-pound bombs.
We released them.
Yeah.
We released them today, and they'll have them, and they paid for them, and they've been waiting for them for a long time. They've been in storage for a long time, but we released them today to Israel.
Why did you do that, sir?
Because they bought them.
No, because they bought them. Oh, they paid for these bombs, so of course they can have them. It doesn't matter what they're going to use them for. What do I care? I got my money. Oh, okay. So if and when the Israeli far right decides that the Palestinian civilians need even more incentive to leave, because a part of that plan is also to make this place so unlivable that Palestinians will have no option but to self-deport. Where are they going to go? Well, that's not really the Israeli politicians' problem, is it? No, of course not. But, when they decide, all right, well, I guess war's back on, then now they'll be able to use those massive 2,000-pound bombs to make their point, okay? And these bombs do kill civilians, lots of them. Anyone in a very large radius of these bombs, dead, incinerated, gone. All right. So now there's been a lot of pushback on Trump's comments. On Sunday, for example, the Jordanian Foreign Minister, Ayman Safadi, said his country's rejection of any displacement of Palestinians was, quote, firm and unwavering. Okay. Omar Shatz, we'll get to Hassan Jabarin first, the director of Palestinian rights group Adala, says, quote, to clean Gaza immediately after the war would be, in fact, a continuation of the war through the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. So now let's get to lecturer in international law sciences, Pope Harrison International Criminal Court Counsel, Omar Shatz. He said Trump's comments were a, quote, call for ethnic cleansing. Yeah. We are witnessing an extremely dangerous but natural continuation of the dehumanization and genocidal calls that we have seen from the most extreme voices inside Israel. Then you have Professor Barak Medina, the chair in human rights law at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, saying its plan is to permanently relocate people, and especially if it is done by force, this is not acceptable. It will be clearly illegal, but also impractical. None of the neighboring countries will be willing to accept people that are expelled from their homeland. It also contradicts the stated policy of the Israeli government. Again, the irony here is, of course, you had, after the Second World War, a bunch of countries that had kicked out Jewish people. So Jewish people needed a homeland. They got the state of Israel, and now you have something similar that's playing out with the Palestinians. Their homeland, they're going to be kicked out of their homeland, okay? Or are getting kicked out. There are people that are planning the kicking out of the people from their homeland, and they've got nowhere else to go. So what's going to happen? No, this is a humanitarian disaster that's already happening, but they're planning on making it worse somehow. And to be fair to about the Israeli government, right? They're not exactly following international law at the moment. I mean, why would it follow its own if it won't follow international law? I mean, it's very clear what's going on, to me at least. They're using every conflict with their neighbors. And so, look, and again, some of their defenses are, can be justified, right? They get attacked by another country or get attacked by another group. And of course, they have to respond in some way, right? But what's going on here is that they're using those conflicts to then illegally grow their own borders. In some cases, they will go and instigate these conflicts by, allowing settlers to illegally settle lands that they want to annex at some point. And then, of course, when people are forced out of their homes, and we've got entire neighborhoods like in Jenin that are being bulldozed by Israeli forces to make room for Israeli settlers, who then also go and attack Palestinians who are already living there. I mean, and that ends up, driving recruitment to these terror groups, to Hamas. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? That they were just going to allow you to come in and take their homes from them? I mean, apparently that's, they don't care. They don't care. And when they're attacked in retaliation, they claim victimhood. And that's what's going on here. And what's really disastrous about this entire situation is you have both Biden and Donald Trump that are back what the Israeli far right wants. Biden a little bit less so, but still a lot more than what the American people supported. And so I'm pretty sure that Biden's backing of Israel, 150%, is what contributed to the Democrats losing the election to Donald Trump, who is obviously not going to be any better. But so far, from what you hear from these statements, has been at least honest about his horrible intentions. Magga is raging at Senator Lindsey Graham for slightly tweaking President Trump over his pardon of the January 6th rioters. This includes the people who had engaged in violent acts against law enforcement. Here's Lindsey Graham.
Number one, he had the legal authority to do it, but I fear that you'll get more violence. Pardoning the people who went into the Capitol and beat up a police officer violently, I think was a mistake, because it seems to suggest that's an okay thing to do. Kamala Harris wanted to raise bail money for people burning down Minneapolis. You know, Biden pardoned half his family going out the door. I think most Americans, if this continues, to see this as an abuse of the pardon power, that we'll revisit the pardon power of the president if this continues. But as to pardoning violent people who beat up cops, I think that's a mistake.
Let me just note that people, you know, that had actually engaged in rioting during the BLM protests, right? 97% peaceful, okay? They did not get pardons. But the January 6ers did. That's real interesting, right? But Lindsey Graham wakes up one day and says, oh no, Donald Trump, he just did the thing that he said he was going to do. Could you imagine? Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, of course he did. He said he was going to pardon the rioters, and that's exactly what he did. But that was apparently dismissed as, oh, you just have Trump derangement. He won't do that. He won't do the things that he says that he's going to do. Really? Because, I don't know, he is. I mean, it seems like the people who were warning the Republicans about Donald Trump were not actually the deranged ones after all. Now, I'll get to the deranged here. Let's go to some of the Magga reaction, right? One person writes, Lindsey Graham's political career is like a circus, except no one's buying tickets anymore. And the clown has lost the plot. It seems like it's too intelligent to be a MAGA supporter, but nonetheless, great. Just Keith writes, electing Lindsey Graham time and time again is a mistake. South Carolina. Okay. Turn Massachusetts Red writes, another rhino that needs to go. Time for the next generation to step in. We need to vote them in. Okay. And then another Schiff-faced writes, that man is a snake. Wake up, people of South Carolina. But wait, that was a incredibly mild, tepid criticism of hey, maybe we shouldn't, pardon people who beat up cops, because that might send a bad message that that's okay. And then also, I'm gonna now throw in criticism of Biden and Kamala Harris. Apparently, not enough. Not enough. Okay. Wow, but still, okay, they're going to come after him. Of course, it's not preferential enough to Donald Trump. All right. So here's the thing, right? Lindsey Graham is so incredibly weak in his criticisms of Trump that it can hardly be called criticism. Okay, especially when your entire thing is back the blue. Well, so much for that, right? But here's the thing. He also talked about on Sunday, okay, Trump's probably illegal firings of the inspectors general, which are the watchdogs, right, of the government. So now Graham told Meet the Press that, look, Donald Trump had technically violated the law, but I'm not really that worried about it.
I'm not overly worried about that. It's not the first time people have come in and put their team in place. When you win an election, you need people in your administration that reflect your views. So I'm not really worried about that. This other stuff, the security detail, that bothers me because it sends a signal to future service. Tulsi Gabbard, I'm inclined to vote for everybody, but I want to hear her thinking about Assad and Snowden, and we'll see.
But very quickly, the law says he's supposed to give you 30 days notice. He didn't do that. Do you think he violated the law?
Well, technically, yeah, but he has the authority to do it. So I'm not, losing a whole lot of sleep that he wants to change the personnel out.
I mean, he's breaking the law, but you know what? I'm not really worried about it because, the people will criticize me. Well, people are already criticizing you. Look, the whole reason for the existence of the inspector general is to have an independent check against mismanagement and abuses of power. When you fire them, speaking of messages, right? Because that's Lindsey Graham's message. Oh, we don't want to send a bad message, right? firing them immediately sends the message that you plan on doing some abuses of power. I'm just saying. I guess you missed that one, Lindsey. I guess you missed it. Now, a good example of, by the way, who was spared in this purge kind of shows you what their priorities are. Michael Horowitz. Remember him? He was a guy who put out a report going after the FBI for the Russia investigation. Oh, so they kept him. Okay, they kept him. Gee, I wonder why. Huh. It's a real mystery, right? Look, I understand the president has the authority to be able to appoint inspectors general, right? And some of the people he fired, actually, he had appointed in his first term. But that said, you can't really fire them without notifying Congress. At least that's according to the current rules. That he's got to wait 30 days, and then he's got to, give a good reason, okay? He didn't do any of that. Now, what was his reason? The changing priorities. Oh, okay, what does that mean? Well, his priorities have changed to going after his political enemies. Okay, that's his priority. I mean, Horowitz definitely shows you that. I want to put more people in here who are not going to investigate me, but are investigate my political enemies. Oh, okay, great. Now, that said, aren't any replacements, don't they have to be approved by Congress? Sure, yeah, but does Trump care about the rules? No, and neither does Congress, okay? Lindsey Graham is telling you by saying this, I'm not worried about it too much. He's telling you that he's going to stay silent, okay? If Congress doesn't speak up, then Trump will be allowed to appoint temporary acting inspectors general. So, and based on, again, Lindsey Graham's very tepid criticism and the backlash to other criticism that he's received from Magga, I wouldn't be surprised if other members of Congress on the Republican side will look at that and go, oh yeah, no, let's have Trump have his way. And this is how, unfortunately, authoritarianism wins. A group of Democratic lawmakers have sent President Donald Trump a strongly worded letter going after him for not lowering grocery prices, as if, that was something that he was going to do. Now, the letter addressed to Trump accused the president of backtracking on one of his central campaign promises to lower grocery prices. Quote, during your campaign, you repeatedly promised you would lower food prices immediately if elected president. But during your first week of office, you've instead focused on mass deportations and pardoning January 6 attackers. Your sole action on costs was an executive order that contained only the barest mention of food prices and not a single specific policy to reduce them. So here's the thing. Donald Trump, when he talked about lowering the price of food, he was lying. We all know that. We all knew that. The president does not control food prices. The president does not control gas prices. There is no lever or button on the president's desk, all right, that Biden was refusing to push to lower food prices, okay? That's not a thing, all right? As George W. Bush had put it, I wish I had a magic wand, low gas. Well, he doesn't have one. The president doesn't have that. There are things that certain policies that he may be able to do in some circumstances or direct some agencies to look into certain things, but the president cannot unilaterally control gas or food, right? Now, who does? Who does control the food prices? Well, that would be the corporations who are incidentally, and I'm sure this is not related at all, they're posting record profits. Gee, I wonder if there's any correlation there. Now, of course, Democratic lawmakers did note in their letter that the companies, and this is 100% correct, they often exploit crises like pandemics and avian flu outbreaks as an opportunity to raise prices beyond what is needed to cover rising costs. In the case of the inflation or greedflation, it's actually over about 50%. So understand that they raised prices even more, 50% more than they needed to cover their costs. So they're skimming a lot off the, not a little off the top, a lot off the top. Now, that said, the question is, what do Democrats really do about it? Let's be honest, okay? Not a whole lot, all right? With the exception of Bernie Sanders. And by the way, I'm not saying the Democrats didn't slow inflation. Oh, yeah, they did. Absolutely. And you can point a lot of, well, inflation actually slowed down a little bit here. Yeah, I know, but things still got more expensive. And that was the problem. Okay, prices went up and they never went down. They just went up at a slower rate. Now, that said, people like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, a few others were actually saying, hey, wait a minute, a lot of this is greedflation. A lot of these are the companies, that are raising the prices. We need to do something. We need to go after the corporate greed. But then you had a lot of other Democrats that were like, hey, why don't you shut up about inflation, okay? We have record job numbers. The economy is awesome. It's amazing. Look at the stock market. It's great. What are you complaining? Do you want Trump to win? Well, that's exactly what happened. What the American people wanted is for people in power to do something about it, and they didn't, okay? And so Trump ended up winning because there were a lot of people that were like, well, Trump says he's going to do something about it. And then they voted for him. And, of course, Donald Trump, he can't do anything about it. No, of course not. And so, look, he lied about it, obviously. Now, look, the Labor Department, according to the data from the Labor Department, the cost of groceries rose 1.8% from December of 2023 to December of 2024. Okay, and eggs saw their biggest price jump, increasing 36.8% during the same time, thanks in large part, of course, to the bird flu epidemic, right? And so, yeah, that's a big problem. It's a big reason that eggs are much more expensive than they were before. It doesn't have anything to do with the president's policies, okay? Again, Biden couldn't have done anything about that, and certainly couldn't have done anything without members of Congress, right? But the thing that I want to talk about is the messaging, because the messaging obviously matters. Trump just sold the entire country a bill of goods that he had no intention of actually following up on. No intention of actually doing anything. In fact, later on, he's like, oh, you know what? I did say that I was going to lower groceries. Turns out that's really hard, and it probably won't happen. Oh, great. Yeah, okay. Yeah. As soon as you win, then you're like, yeah, I was lying about that. But again, the messaging, right? Democrats, the big problem with the Democratic Party in this election is they couldn't admit that there was a big problem. All right. Why? Well, it would hurt Biden. And then later on, well, it would hurt Kamala. And it also might make our donors mad because our donors are the ones that are making tons and tons of bank right now. Well, what happened? Well, you managed to please the donors, but the voters weren't very happy. And so they threw the Democrats out. Now, Elizabeth Warren, to her credit, she introduced a bill last year that would make it illegal to sell services or goods at a grossly excessive price. Now, what happened to that? Not sat in Congress. Now, of course, you can blame Republicans for that, right? As Republicans had the House, and so, it is up to them to introduce or legislation to then be voted on. They set the agenda, so to speak. But again, it would never pass a Republican House. But nobody knows that. Nobody knows how government works. And why is that? Well, look, it's because civics is one of the things that's not really taught very well in classes, civics. But another reason is because Democrats are not aggressive when it comes to their messaging. And they refuse to appear on anything but legacy media. Nobody trusts legacy media anymore. Those are the people that are telling you, actually, everything's fine, everything's dandy. The economy is fantastic for us rich people on, legacy media. Oh, normal people, I don't know. I've never talked to one. So, look, that's also why the legacy media is why nobody knows that Elizabeth Warren actually sent a letter back in May to then President Joe Biden, right? Begging his administration, please lower food costs through, I don't know, whatever measure that you can do. Better federal enforcement of price manipulation, for example, right? Maybe you could do that. And look, the FTC under Lina Khan was attempting to do something, but there's only so much you can do. And so messaging, again, it matters so much. Joe Biden was out there claiming that, I would win a re-election against Donald Trump. Oh, yes. And that's despite being underwater in the polls, while also, punishing students who protested against the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. That was the thing that he was worried about the most, defending Netanyahu, where he should have been on that campaign trail when he was there, okay, talking about how it's Republicans and their donors that are making your food more expensive. If you give us a majority, maybe we can do something about it. But we didn't get that messaging. And Kamala Harris had some messaging on it at first, and then started talking about freedom, okay, and how Trump bad. We know Trump bad. We can see it. But what are you going to do? Are you going to help with not just slowing inflation, but maybe, I don't know, making it so that grocery prices actually do come back down to that level? Or at least, if you can't make the grocery prices go down, make the incomes go up. But not a whole lot about that. Now, look, I wasn't worried about food prices as much. And of course, obviously, Donald Trump is not either. But now in the statements to NBC News, Warren and Jim McGovern, another signatory to this letter, is about 20 Democrats, they went after Trump for how he spent his first week in office, which was, I agree, was terrible. Okay. Quote, if Donald Trump is serious about working to lower grocery prices, which he is not, he should buckle down, pick up these tools to lower egg prices and deliver on his promises, Warren said. McGovern added, Trump hasn't done a damn thing to lower food prices or help the hardworking people struggling to put food on the table. We are ready to work with him to actually deliver results, not just empty rhetoric. So here's the thing that frustrates me about this. The shaming won't work. You cannot shame the shameless. Okay? Donald Trump is shameless. He lies as easily as he breathes. So I don't think this letter will do much. All right? And not only that, but telling him, oh, we can't wait to work with you. That's going to do absolutely nothing. All right? He's not going to take on the corporation. Not unless they're woke. Okay? And you see all the corporations that have pulled back on their DEI already. Here's the thing. The Democrats are fighting Trump as if he is some sort of normal politician. They still have not learned that that does not work. You do have to be strong. You do have to be combative. You have to be populist, right? One of the reasons that Joe Biden actually was able to win in 2020 against Donald Trump was he took elements of progressive populism from Bernie Sanders and ran on those. Now, it wasn't like a super, super progressive campaign, but there were good elements of populism. And of course, at the time, Donald Trump had gotten us into a massive hole thanks to COVID, right? And so those two things, that's why Joe Biden won, all right? But we didn't have that this time. Things were going, again, you ask the Democrats, things were going fantastic. I don't understand. Well, they were going fantastic for some people, but not for the majority. And that was one of the problems. You're disconnected with average people, okay? And your messaging was way off, okay? Not strong enough. I mean, look, when it comes to the messaging, when it comes to throwing rhetorical punches, one of the things that frustrated me so much that they stopped doing during this election was they stopped calling Republicans weird. And they did this whole, I want to work with Republicans. We need a strong Republican Party. You know, we're going to work with them to fight against Donald Trump and ensure freedom. No. Calling them weird, that actually worked. Because people were like, you know what? Turns out these people are weird. Combine that with an actual populist, progressive economic message, of we're going to help you. We're going to, we're going to start getting, taking on the companies that are screwing you over. We're going to raise your wages. We're going to do all these things to help you, okay? To help you be able to afford groceries. It's the economic message. But they didn't really do that, and they weren't effective at the avenues that they were doing that. They were still hoping to pick up Republican moderates. For every working class blue collar person that we lose in Pennsylvania, we'll pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs. That's Chuck Schumer's plan, and it backfired horribly. And as far as this letter, he's not going to look at it. No, he's going to crumple it up and throw it away. He has no respect for you at all. And neither does the American people right now. Democrats are at the lowest approval rating that they've been at since 1992. I think 33%. Okay? You got to take the fight to the people. Okay? You got to get the message out to the average voter and stop just, you got to get outside of the mainstream media bubble. All right? And actually start going on independent media and telling the voters, we have an economic populist message. We're gonna help you. Okay? And right now, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has, in recent times, been most successful at actually shutting down their progressive messaging. That has to change. That has to change, especially if we want to actually have some wins and elect a Congress that can take on Donald Trump and the Republicans in 2026. A new open source Chinese AI model has caused a massive freakout on Wall Street. So this company called DeepSeek just recently, not recently, it was actually back in December, they released a free open source language model, AI, back in December of last year that is now causing companies in the US to freak the F out. According to CNN, the 1-year-old startup revealed a chat GPT-like AI model called R1, which has all the abilities, but operates at a fraction of the cost of OpenAI, Google's, or Meta's popular AI models. So it's being called pretty much revolutionary, all right? Now, the company said that it had spent just $5.6 million training its newest AI model compared with the hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars U.S. companies have spent on their AI technologies. Whoopsie. Yeah. In fact, you've got Mark Andreessen, a Trump supporter and one of the world's leading tech investors, calling DeepSeek, one of the most amazing and impressive breakthroughs I've ever seen. Which, of course, I'm assuming that they're going to try to have Trump ban it. Because right now, the stock market is reacting pretty poorly to this news. In fact, Nvidia, the leading supplier of AI chips, whose stock more than doubled in each of the past few years, fell 12% in pre-market trading, about 18% after trading open. Meta, Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, were also down sharply. Marvel, Broadcom, Palantir, Oracle, many other tech giants. The 7 tech giants have lost over $1 trillion, somewhere near $2 trillion. All right. Absolute disaster. Keith Lerner, analyst at Truist, said that the DeepSeek model rollout is leading investors now to question the lead that U.S. companies have and how much is being spent and whether that spending will lead to profits or overspending. Now, let me note, once again, the Chinese model, R1, it is open source and free. So that is opposed to all the US models, which again are obviously built for profit. So now the other thing about this, China is not supposed to have access to high-powered chips. And that's thanks to US export controls. Basically saying, well, we're not going to give you access to these high-powered Nvidia GPUs. No, we're going to keep them for ourselves. And then, build a whole bunch of data centers and everything that are going to use up all the water. and cause, all this, use up all this electricity and stuff to do our AI models. And China's like, oh yeah, all right, well you go ahead. We're just gonna make do with less then. And you know what? They did. Not only did they have less money to train their AI models, right? They actually end up having to use less energy and less water, less everything. And so, yeah, they made do with less, and they made something that is just as good as the other way more expensive and energy intensive and money intensive AI models. I mean, that's amazing. So this could be the end of the AI bubble right here. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, look, the Trump administration had planned to invest billions into AI supremacy, which, when you think about it, imagine if that, was instead invested in education, infrastructure, eradicating homelessness, things like that. That would be great. But, apparently no. The Trump administration was like, oh, we got to put it all into AI. Why? It's because all the tech bros that have lined up to swear fealty to Donald Trump. Okay. But we don't know if we're going to invest that now, which obviously is going to cause problems. It's going to piss off Zuck and all the other tech bros. Okay. Which is funny. I love seeing those asshats lose a bunch of money. Okay. But again, I don't know if this will be the end of the bubble, but certainly things have changed. Okay. Now, Axios notes that Trump's economic vision relied on massive growth fueled by an AI boom that his closest advisors have sold as the country's future. But the same Axios article notes that if China can do AI better and faster at 1/1000th of the cost, it casts a shadow on the rationale for spending that kind of money and leaves the country playing catch up. So, here we go. United States playing catch up to China. I think there's a lesson in this. I guess the one thing is that's what happens when you don't support education. Okay, especially higher education. Okay, specifically because where do you think these developers are, learning how to develop? Okay, look, in America, we have a ridiculous, stupid way of funding higher education. We load up students with debt, so they're they have to get jobs as bankers in order to pay their student loans. Okay, while also the tech industry loves their H-1B visas, so they're importing a bunch of people to work these jobs temporarily, right? And so these projects never get done. And then, of course, you've got the tech, tech CEOs that are making money hand over fist and not reinvesting it, or they're looking at these gigantic bubbles that they're creating on Wall Street, and they're not actually looking to see if whether or not they're creating is actually a good product or not. No, they're looking at what's going to be my returns for the shareholders. And so, no wonder China's kicking our ass. Okay? And then there's talk about, we got to get the tech pros more tax cuts and more deregulation. Well, it hasn't seemed to work very well. And look, now here you've got these companies that are losing their shirt right now, okay, as a result of this. Now they're going to have to go and probably implement these very same changes, which also means that, now they're not going to have to do billions of dollars to train their AI models. Ultimately, this would be a good thing, but definitely not for the current American tech sector. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.